Even when nothing's happening, you're still on. You're still thinking, you're still scanning, you're still preparing. And at this point, you don't even question it. You just call it responsibility. There's a version of you that people rely on. You don't wait for direction. You just step in and figure it out. When things stall, you move them forward. And over time, that version of you becomes the one everyone expects to show up at work, at home, in your church, in your community, in your relationships. And if you're honest, you expect it from yourself too. But here's the tension. At some point, being capable quietly turns into always being on. Not occasionally, not when it's needed, all the time. Most men never notice when that shift actually happens because on the surface, nothing looks wrong. Things are getting done, deadlines are met, people aren't waiting on you. But internally, something feels different. You don't fully relax. You don't fully disconnect. Even in moments that are supposed to be off, your system is still running, still anticipating, still organizing, still running ahead. Like something in you never really fully powers down. And you might call that discipline. You might even call it responsibility. But what if that's not what it is? What if what you're experiencing isn't strength, but rather conditioning? Because there's something that happens in men who are consistently capable. Your brain starts learning a pattern. When I stay on, things go well. When I stay sharp, problems don't happen. When I stay ready, I stay in control. And that pattern gets reinforced over and over again. And eventually your nervous system adapts to it. It doesn't consciously ask, do I need to be on right now? It starts assuming I should be on, just in case. And this is where things shift because now being on starts to feel like the baseline. There's a concept called predictive processing. This is where your brain is constantly trying to anticipate what's coming next so it can keep you safe and effective. And when you've spent years being the one who solves problems, who carries responsibility, who steps in when things fall apart, your brain gets very good at predicting demand, even when there isn't any. So instead of responding to pressure, you start living in anticipation of it. And that anticipation keeps your system activated, not intensely, but consistently, low level, background, always there. And here's the part that's hard to see. From the outside, it looks like competence. But from the inside, it feels like you can't turn it off. You sit down to relax, but your mind is still organizing. You finish a task and immediately think about the next one. You have a moment of quiet and something in you starts searching for what you might be missing. Not because something is wrong. Let me say that again. Nothing is wrong. That's what makes this so hard to see. But because your system has learned that staying on is what keeps everything working. And again, this isn't weakness. This is adaptation. It's what allowed you to become who you are. It's why people trust you. It's why things in your life don't fall apart easily. But every adaptation comes with a cost. And this one is subtle because when you're always on, you lose access to something. You lose access to true rest, not just sitting still, but actually being at ease. You lose access to presence because part of your attention is always ahead of where you are. You lose access to clarity because your system is constantly processing input, even when it doesn't need to. And over time, life starts to feel more like management than engagement. You're handling it, but you're not fully in it. And here's where it goes deeper, because for a lot of men, competence doesn't just stay a skill. It becomes identity. You're not just someone who can handle things. You're the one who handles things. And once that happens, being on starts to feel like a requirement, not externally, but internally. Because if you're not on, then who are you in that moment? And that question is what keeps a lot of men from ever truly stepping out of it. Because slowing down feels unfamiliar. Letting your guard down feels irresponsible. Being fully present without preparing for what's next feels risky, even if you wouldn't say it that way. But underneath all of this is something deeper. It's the belief that your value is tied to your ability to perform, to produce, to provide, to solve. And again, there's truth in that. Men are wired to build, to lead, to carry responsibility. That matters. But when performance becomes the foundation of identity, you don't just show up when needed. You stay on so you never fall short. And that's where the weight comes from. Not just what you're doing, but who you believe you have to be in order to stay valued. And this is where most men never make that distinction, because being capable and constantly performing, because they look the same from the outside, but internally they're very different. Capability is responsive. It shows up when it's needed. Performance, on the other hand, is constant. It stays active whether it's needed or not. Capability allows for rest. Performance resists it. Capability is grounded. Performance is vigilant. And if you've been living in that space for a long time, it can be hard to even recognize what it would feel like to not be on, to just be present, to not be scanning, to not be preparing, to not hold everything together in the background. But here's the shift. The goal is not to become less capable. It's not to stop performing altogether. It's to regain choice, to be able to turn it on when it's needed and actually turn it off when it's not. Because real control isn't staying on all the time. It's knowing when you don't have to be. And that starts with awareness. Just noticing it, not judging it, not trying to fix it immediately, but recognizing I'm still on, even though nothing is being asked of me right now. Because the truth is, you don't lose your capability when you step out of performance. You refine it. You make it more precise, more intentional, more aligned with what actually matters. And that's a different kind of strength. Not constant output, but controlled engagement. And if you've been living in that always on state for a while, this isn't going to be a flip overnight, but it can shift. And it starts with realizing something simple. You don't have to earn your value every moment you're awake. You can be capable without constantly proving it. If this feels familiar and you're not the only one living this way, this is the work we do here. Subscribe if you want more of this clarity. And if you're ready to actually step out of that constant on state, there's a link below.